Hey, Facebook friends. I am Audrey Christie McLaughlin with audreychristie.com, and we're going to talk today about back to school immunity for your kids, which is kind of funny because I've had two kids with a virus over the weekend, but I'll get to that in a minute. And I'll tell you a little bit, like, why did they get sick? Probably stress, which causes a lowered immune system. And sports started back, so they were suddenly exposed to a lot of different germs. And that's what happens to all kids when they go back to school. They get light on sleep, they get stressed out, they aren't outside, they're not in contact with the earth, they don't get to play and move and work out as much because they spend, 6-7 hours on their heinies in a desk. And you'll see me glancing at my notes every once in a while. It's just because I don't want you to tag me back and say, you didn't tell me this key factor. And so I want to make sure that I get everything for you. And plus, when they go back to school and sports and everything, they eat a whole lot more processed packaged foods, or at least most kids do. Now, I'll talk about why I think my kids got sick over the weekend and how I made sure that that lasted just a tiny bit of time, where other people who've had the same or similar viruses are going on day 2 and day 3 and day 4 with it. Okay, so kids going back to school, you don't want them to get sick, right? So what can you do? You can homeschool. No, just kidding. Nobody wants to do that. Well, some people want to do that, but I don't want to do that. So it's not that tough. Let's start with the basics. Sleep. Kids need 10 hours of sleep every single night. So if they have to get up at 6:40 in the morning, that means butts need to be in bed by like 8 p.m. and they really need to be asleep by 9. So the way that works and looks in our house is a lot of times we don't get done with practice until 8 o'clock at night. I don't know what some of these coaches are thinking, but we don't get done with practice until 8. And then, so we come home, have a quick snack, usually it's some sort of protein, and then we start winding down for bed. Now, for my oldest, that means she reads a book for 10 or 15 minutes and then lights out. Usually my 5-year-old is dusted enough that she's straight away to bed. But it's really important that they get 10 hours of sleep as much as possible, as many nights a week as possible, and preferably every night. And then you can look at stress. And stress is one that's a little bit less easy to control unless you have kids that are just little hellions at bedtime, which we've all gone through phases that way. But stress, really the best thing to do is to teach them to manage their stress. And this could be with physical activity, it could be with journaling if they're old enough, or it could be with meditation. I highly recommend kidcentered.com. They have great guided meditations for kids. And my kids love them. They use them all the time. And they have different topics from focus to stress to even cleaning and tidying your room, which is really awesome. So I suggest you definitely do that. And then, of course, playing. So a lot of stress relief and even immune system buildup can be resolved through playing. Playing outside, playing barefoot, and playing in the sunlight without sunscreen protection. Now, it's not healthy to get burned, so chill down on that. That's not what I'm asking you to do. But it is healthy to get vitamin D through the sun. But let's start with barefoot first. You can also call it grounding. So even if they can't play outside barefoot, maybe they can sit outside with their feet flat on the ground, skin to earth contact. There's lots of studies out there. I just got done reading one that was recently published in the Journal of Inflammation and Research. It was a multidisciplinary study where they found that adults and children, both healthy and unwell, considered unwell, people with chronic diseases, were able to reduce their inflammation, reduce their pain, and increase their immune response simply by spending 15 to 20 minutes a day in contact, skin to earth contact, or grounding. And so that's really important for kids. And if you think about it, when school starts back, they get up in the morning, they put on their shoes, they go to school, they're not taking their shoes off all day long, indoors or outdoors at school. Then they come home, they probably do their homework. They may or may not take their shoes if they just rush right out of the car, off the bus to play. They may or may not take their shoes off. And so it's really, really, really important to get that skin to earth contact. There's really nothing that can replace it. They do have some indoor grounding mats for seasonal issues, but I highly recommend like the actual contact is best. And then I also talked about sunlight. Play in the sunlight. Again, it's not healthy to get burned, but it is very healthy to get unencumbered, that means not with a sunscreen barrier, unencumbered sunlight on the skin for 20 to 30 minutes a day. If you're in an area where sunburn is likely, do that in the morning, do that in the evening, but it's really the only way that your body can get enough vitamin D to function properly in its immune system and a whole host of other problems. So that's one key factor in keeping your immune system in check. You can also supplement vitamin D, and there are kids vitamin D supplements. They don't taste very good. There are a few gummy brands, but here lately our Amazon Subscribe and Save has actually been out of those gummy brands, so we're currently out of vitamin D. Except for the sunlight. We live in Texas in summer. There's plenty of sunlight, right? Okay, so speaking of vitamin D and supplements, throw away the multivitamins. Stop giving your kids Flintstone vitamins, and especially Flintstone vitamins, because they're full of food dye, which causes a whole host of other problems, but that's for another day. But throw away the multivitamins. Best case scenario, they're creating really expensive urine. Worst case scenario, you're buying the most expensive damn gummy bears on the shelf of the grocery store. Stop. Even if your child has a terrible diet, stop buying the multivitamins unless you just like lighting cash on fire. Now, there are a small percentage of people who may have an underlying issue or an underlying cause where a multivitamin is required. I would still wager we could find you a better way to get those required vitamins and minerals. So what to do instead? Kids need omega-3s, and I have some that we buy. We have Omega-licious. Can you see that? And that one's really inexpensive, and I like it because the girls, I'm sorry if this is super loud, because the girls can get their own. So they come in a little pack, and they take that pack each day, right? And these are raspberry flavored. The raspberry does an okay job of covering up the fish flavor. The kids like them, and they ask for them. And then another brand that we use sometimes, and it just depends on what Amazon has, is Little Critters. You can see omega-3. Now these are food dye free. These little critter ones have a little bit more sugar than what I like. But these also have vitamin E in them, which is important for a lot of big reasons. But omega-3 is what you want to look for. And there are so many things that this helps with, so many things. But I'm going to, rather than going off on a tangent about omega-3s and their magical powers, we're just going to talk about immune system function. But they're also great for brain development. They're great for attention span. They are great for your digestive system, to make sure that if dehydration isn't your cause of constipation, these can help. But again, that's another story. You want to give them a vitamin D supplement. We're completely out, and I didn't save the bottle. But Rainbow Light makes a vitamin D that is really good for kids. And then probiotics. Right now, I am hooked on these. I hope you can see that. Pro Kids Hyperbiotics. And there's a little bit of a glare, so I'm sorry. And again, we get them off Amazon. These are sugar-free. They don't taste great. It's kind of like chomping up a piece of chalk. But they have a little bit of orange flavor, so the kids don't mind. And usually, if it's a morning where they do mind, then they'll chew it at the same time as their omega-3, and it disguises the taste. So that's very, very, very important. And again, there are special circumstances where a child may need to take something more than that, but these are the basics, and that will get the job done, especially for back to school immunity. Now, it would have been ideal for me to tell you this a month ago and for you to have started it then, but it's not too late, and it's something that you want to do all through the school year, right? And so another thing I talked about at the beginning when I was sort of listing them all willy-nilly is diet. And there's a big, and a lot of kids don't eat great through the summer, but during the school year, having volunteered in my child's cafeteria before, it's just processed food after processed food after processed food. Some kids even bring TV dinners. Like, that's not even food. It's food-like stuff, right? And so basically it's a really simple rule to follow. There's two parts. Eat plants, colorful fruits and vegetables. Eat animals, proteins, good quality proteins. Stay away from that farm-raised catfish or farm-raised any kind of fish. Avoid grains and anything that comes in a package. It's really, really easy. And I'll post as school gets started for us next week, I'll post the kind of things that my girls put in their lunch boxes to avoid, so that they can eat plants and animals, basically. And I could do an entire hour on things that come in a package, but that's an entire another talk. So you can also use smart drinks. And so I like to do things like Tiesta tea. That's a really smart drink. So Tiesta tea, and I've done a live stream on this before, but it is actually an immunity tea. It's got elderberry in it, which is super great for immune systems, both when you have an active viral or bacterial infection and in prevention of. So I highly recommend that. When it brews, it's pink, and it's got sort of an apple essence to it, although it has no sugar, no carbs, no calories or anything like that, and no artificial, for God's sake, no artificial anythings. But it's pink, so it kind of feels like a little treat, right? Like they get excited about it. So they get a treat. So another thing we do once school starts, I don't do this so much during the summer because we're barefoot all the time, but part of the getting on our socks and shoes routine includes essential oils. And I actually can't find my doTERRA. I have doTERRA On Guard, and this is a beadlet. This is great for adults to take. If your kids are sick, start taking these, 1 beadlet a day. That way you'll be good to go. And then also there's a Young Living version, and again, that light is called Thieves. There's also a plant therapy version called Germ Fighter. Any of those will work. What you do is you put them in a little handy dandy roll-on, and my kids love these super cute little roll-ons, right? And it's diluted with fractionated coconut oil, and then they roll this on the bottom of their feet every morning. And it's just part of the routine. Oil, socks, shoes, done. And they each have their own, and they're different. So there's no, oh, that one's mine. No, this one's mine. So I don't have an oil to cure that, unfortunately. Okay, so that's something else that we use. And again, there's all sorts of other remedies. There's homeopathic remedies for immune system, and I can talk more about that next time. And there's also, you can even use crystals. So green aventurine and carnelian are really great for vitality and immune system. You can either carry them in your pocket, you can put them in like a tea jug, and this keeps the tea from straining, and you create an elixir by putting them in there, setting it out in the sunlight, and then you drink that water. It's called an elixir. That's another way to also boost the vitamins, boost your immune system. Right? So now, as I mentioned, I'm giving this whole talk on back to school immunity. My kids haven't even gone back to school, and Sunday, two of them, the only two, they both have a fever, right? So what do I think happened there? Well, it's been 110 until this week in Texas, so there hasn't been a ton of outside play. Stress is probably a little bit on the rise because summer's coming to an end and school's starting, and not to mention that school, we kind of do it's like a celebration back to school. So we spend a lot more time staying up late and doing all those things. Now, there's been a lot of kids in our community with this same sort of upper respiratory fever virus deal going around. And it lasted at our house for 24, maybe 30-ish, because I don't take their temperature overnight, 30-ish hours. And the reason why ours is much faster than others who are taking 2 and 3 and 4 days, and one poor mom at gymnastics said that her daughter was sick for a week with fever. It takes longer because I do it a little bit differently once we have fever. Now, I've run into people, it's been on social media, and they're like, well, my gosh, how did you get over yours so faster? And then when I say, well, because I don't give Tylenol or ibuprofen for fever, they kind of go, oh. I'm like, right. So when my kids have a fever, generally below 103, depending, I don't give anything to reduce the fever. Not even, you see a lot of people touting this, but you really shouldn't do this on small kids anyways, not even like peppermint oil on the bottom of the feet. Because a fever is the body's immune response, right? It's the body's way of fighting off an infection or a virus. So if you take away the fever, you take away the body's ability to do that. Now, there are times when intervention is warranted, when it's a high fever, when it's a fever at all, like 100.4 or above in a child, in an infant, so less than 6 months, those are reasons to treat, to call the doctor, to do all of those things. But in grown-ups and in school-age children even, let that fever ride for a little bit so that they can recover. So my daughter's fevers were in the 100 point something range, and I let it ride. They were a little uncomfortable. We did things to help ease that comfort. We made sure we stayed hydrated. But because of that, their body was able to effectively fight off that illness. And then they were returned to health. Monday, they were playing, still had a little congestion. By Tuesday, we just have an occasional cough. But no fever after Sunday because the body used the fever to respond to the illness. See, a lot of illnesses thrive at body temperature. And so a fever, even a high one sometimes, is a good indication that the body's immune system is doing what it's supposed to do, right? So you don't want to kill that off. Not to mention giving, well, one, Tylenol can cause significant liver damage and does every year for kids and grown-ups even. But anytime you're inputting or giving a foreign substance into the body is using energy to process that substance back out of the body that it could be using to fight the illness, right? So there's that factor as well. So if my kids have a fever less than about 103, and I'm certain it's not poison, a severe bacterial infection, a heat stroke, then I don't give Tylenol or ibuprofen. All that being said, I'm not a doctor and I don't play one on TV, so please use your judgment. And you're ultimately responsible for when to call your doctor and when to give medication. And also use your mommy instinct, right? So that's the best kind. So sometimes mommy instinct just tells us that that's what we need to do. So I think I've touched on everything. If you have any questions, feel free to post them below. I'm always coming back for, to answer the questions. Oh, and what we do for fevers. So we drink lots of fluids, including the elderberry tea or the immunity tea. We double up on probiotics. So I give them 2 of these. We do magnesium body spray for aches and for headaches. And we do soothing baths for just general discomfort, and it takes their mind off of it. Some experts say, and I agree, that you can do cod liver oil, and to double up on cod liver oil. If you can get your children to take cod liver oil, then you deserve a trophy. And I don't mean like a participation trophy. I mean like a big old Super Bowl trophy for getting them to do that. Because I have pretty adventurous eaters. They eat sushi, they like raw oysters, cod liver oil, they're drawing the line. So that's what I have on back to school immunity. Please post your questions below. I will be adding a PDF of a fever printout of when to call your doctor and other remedies to try. So thanks so much for watching. See you soon.